going through a period of turbulence. A complicated situation developed in international financial markets. The economies of several countries, including Eurozone states, face the persistent effects of the crisis, among them the accumulation of excessive amounts of sovereign debt, a long overdue renewal of the political and socio-economic systems in different parts of the world, especially in the Middle East and North Africa, was accompanied by outbreaks of armed conflict and violence. And coming closer to home, that is Malaysia, I would like to quote the opinion of a very well-known economist and also analyst, Dr. Lin Yi-san, who is also a consultant on financial issues. And he said just a few days ago in the Star newspaper, the world economy is now in its most fragile since the 2008 financial crisis, according to the OECD. And so too is a row between China and Japan over disputed islands in nearby seas. Recent data highlighted continuing vulnerabilities in East and Southeast Asia. And after saying all that, he comes to this conclusion: the world has become a dangerous place. Now, the choice of Oceania and Pacific, I think, is very pertinent because the primary focus of world economic growth is going to be in this region. And this is recognized by almost all countries. And the superpowers are now, of course, strategizing and positioning themselves to take advantage of this Pacific Rim or Oceania region becoming the focus of world economic growth in the future. And of course, with all these territorial disputes between Japan, China, involving also ASEAN countries, I think the Pacific is going to be quite a volatile region as well. The third subheading is the collapsing structures of corrupt and dictatorial regimes in the Middle East and the new Sunni-Shi'i discord arising from this. The US-led invasion of Iraq and the imposition of the democratic system in post-Saddam Iraq has put to an end the Ba'ath dictatorship. That's good, to my mind. But it has also widened the ethnic and sectarian, that is Sunni-Shi'i, animosities within the Muslim community. And this has spilled over into the adjacent countries, into Central Asian countries, Central Asian republics, maybe over also into China, and now the Syrian bloodbath will also spill over into sectarian animosities in the region. The resurgence of Shi'i thought and religious practice after the 1979 Iranian Revolution in the Middle East and in several Central Asian republics is a well-known socio-cultural phenomenon in those countries which already had Shi'i practicing ethnic groups. However, the expansion of Shi'i influence in the last few decades in predominantly, historically, and traditionally Sunni countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia, southern Thailand, Cambodia, is bound to create intra-ethnic tension of yet unknown religio-political consequences, given the fact that the Malay ethnic groups in Southeast Asian region, particularly in Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, Mindanao, and southern Thailand have been staunch practitioners of Sunni orthodoxy and tradition ever since Islam was brought to the Malay-Indonesian archipelago by the Sunni Arab missionaries and preachers centuries ago. Besides, the religious authorities in Malaysia and Brunei have officially declared that the Islamic school of thought being followed in the two countries is a school of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And therefore, any serious and/or strategic concerted strategy or attempt by external forces or internal agencies, such as embassies, to make the Sunni Malays change their religious tradition from the mainstream Sunni orthodoxy to Shiism or liberalism, a la Liberal Islam Network, Jaringan Islam Liberal in Indonesia, or Ahmadiyya Qadianism, or Neo-Mu'tazilism, Al-Mu'tazila al-Judud, would be met with official rejection by the religious authorities in the country, that is Malaysia, Brunei, and also to a certain extent also in Indonesia and Singapore. And if the attempts or strategies were to persist by subtle or less than subtle means, despite knowing the local sensitivities and norms, they are bound to lead to deep and irreconcilable, and I hope not bloody, social religious discord with grave consequences to the political stability, unity, and harmony of the Muslim Malay population in the region, that is also Asia Pacific and Oceania. The Malay world and the East Asian and Oceania region must be spared from having to endure the shameful, bloody hostilities of inter-sectarian strife that have become commonplace in several parts of Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Killing of people, shooting of people in mosques. God forbid, hopefully will never come to this part of the world. Now I go to Islam in Oceania. You can see now that Oceania consists of many small islands, but nonetheless they are independent states. And we have not really focused on this. Of course, the Dawah movements in this region have been doing some work in Fiji, in Solomon Islands, in Tonga, in Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea. I think there's a very important work being done in Papua New Guinea because this is in competition with the Christian evangelical movements very aggressively working in some parts of Indonesia, Sabah, Sarawak, Philippines, and also in the Oceania Islands. According to this report, there are about 500,000 Muslims in Oceania. And according to Pacific Magazine 2007, it says green moon rising in those islands. So another a challenge for Islam and Muslims in this part of the world, in Oceania, and also in the Pacific region, Pacific Rim, is, of course, the policies of the governments like Australia and New Zealand, and also the Christian evangelical movements, and sectarian competition and rivalry. That is to say, the Sunni-Shi'i discord will increase in the region. Already there is a concern in Australia expressed by AFIC, or Australian Federation of Islamic Councils, that over the last few decades there have been a greater presence of Shi'i centers and mosques in Australia, and this is bound to lead to inter-sectarian differences. The fifth challenge is the threat of Muslim extremism, radicalism, and militancy, and the emergence of ultra-liberalism and pluralism. So these are the two extremes of ifrat and tafrit. In Southeast Asia, this phenomenon exists in Indonesia, southern Thailand, and the Philippines, while in South Asia, Pakistan and Afghanistan are the major countries facing this problem. Pockets of Muslim militancy still exist in the Russian Republic, the Central Asian republics, and in China. However, the success of the Malaysian and Indonesian governments in maintaining the overall image and reality of Muslim moderation, that is strengthening the tradition of the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah tradition in this part of the world, and the greater cooperation of ASEAN leaders in emphasizing the importance of promoting religious moderation, or al-wasatiyah, in this multi-religious milieu would help to reduce the threat coming from religious extremism, al-ghulu, and also al-ifrat. One good news, though, and I think this is hopefully going to be a reality in the next several years, is this new accord that is going to take place between the Philippines government and the Moro people. And I think on October the 15th, there will be, this accord will be signed, and this hopefully will pave the way for a peaceful solution to this very, very troubling region and hotspot, Mindanao, which can also become a volcano in this Oceania and Pacific region if the embers of and the fire of sectarian and also separatist movements are not controlled. And we hope that there will be sincerity on both sides, because accords and peace treaties between Philippine government and the Muslims have been there for many, many decades, but analysis have shown that the lack of sincerity on the part of the government of the Philippines has also led to the failures of these peace treaties. So we really hope that this one is going to work. Now, another problem coming to this part of the world is what I call the reassertion of atheism. Yeah, by the way, you can also look at Richard Dawkins' Foundation for Science, for Reason and Science. And in this website, they have made a new announcement that now there are 25 prominent atheists who are considered as super scholars. And if you want to be listed under the list of super scholars, then it's not enough to say you are an atheist. You must really work hard to make atheism prevail over religion. In other words, you have to work for the demise of religion and the reassertion of atheism. And included in this 25 list are the names of Stephen Hawking, These are scientists, Peter Singer, Steven Weinberg, and P. Myers, prominent scientists being listed as super scholars who are now propagating the reassertion of atheism. And this, of course, have also affected the emotion and sentiments or anti-Islamic sentiments. You can see the picture of that priest in Texas who decided to burn the Quran. And of course, this can lead to bigger problems between Muslims and Christians, which we hope to avoid, certainly in this part of the world and not in Malaysia. Now, another challenge is to make the necessary changes to practice the principles of al-wasatiyya. Of course, al-wasatiyya consists of three major components, interrelated, that is justice, moral excellence, and the middle path. Among the problems is the faults in the understanding of jihad. And alhamdulillah, in the Malaysian context, jihad has taken a positive meaning and has been engineered to promote the positive meaning. And now in Malaysia, people are talking of business jihad, educational jihad, social jihad, and I hope also maybe environmental jihad, because the environment is now being also affected by the lack of ethical concerns in the industries, in industrialization, and also scientific research. Among the changes which need to take place at the level of individuals and communities, I would mention the need to change from sentimental and this clamorous attitude, atifiyya and ghawgha'iyya attitudes, to rational and scientific attitude, from irtijaliyya or lack of sound preparation, dhatiyya or subjectivism, or infi'aliyya or excitable mindset, and tahakkumiyya, arbitrariness, and also justifications for improper actions, tabririyya. All these will have to be changed, and we need to develop the al-nazra al-mawdu'iyya, this objectivity, the attitude of objectivity, ihtiram al-ikhtisasat, and also naqd al-dhat, or also self-criticism. And the challenge is also to move away from bigotry or ta'assub, exclusivism, al-inghilaq, and also the lack of tasamuh. Among the misunderstanding of the concept of jihad, of course, is the issue of al-khuruj al-hukkam. And this has become a big problem in the Middle East, and has caused great stress and calamities in that part of the world. But alhamdulillah, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, this has not really become a serious issue, because I think of the dominance of the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah mentality and moderation in Muslim culture in East Asia, Oceania region. Now, another challenge is at the educational front in the schools and universities and Muslim educational centers, the need to develop this approach of integration of science and religion as the new trend in Muslim education in not only Southeast Asia, we hope it will also spread in the whole of Asia Ocenia region. Let me just quote the report by Karen Briner, a Western observer of Indonesian developments. He says, integrated Islamic schools are one of the fastest growing trends in Islamic education in post-Suharto Indonesia. As a result of expanded religious freedoms and local fervor for the global revival of Islam, a new market for Islamic schooling, largely among the middle and upper middle class, has emerged. It is estimated that there are now over 1,000 of these primary and secondary integrated Islamic schools in Indonesia and nearly as many integrated preschools and kindergartens. The majority of these schools have been established in the last 15 years. And I would like to add to that observation the following remarks. The post-Reformasi era of Indonesia, with the emphasis on democratization, decentralization, and provincial administrative empowerment, together with the transformation of the 6 EREN, that is to say, the regional state institutes of Islamic education, which have now been transformed into Islamic universities, have opened up a new intellectual discourse among several Muslim scholars and intellectuals centering on the need to venture into the area of Islamicization of acquired human knowledge, including modern science and technology. Scholars like Saifuddin, Marwan Wahidul Amnam, Mulyadi Karta, Nagara, and few others can be cited. In Malaysia, this new intellectual vision of reformist Muslim scholars has led to the establishment of the IIUM in 1983 and also the formation of the Malaysian Academy of Islamic Science, Asasi, in 1977, which published its journal, Kasturi, dedicated to the promotion of a unified and integrated vision of knowledge. Now, those of you who have been to Turkey many times will recognize this bridge. And I choose this bridge as a symbol of the need to bridge Western civilization and Muslim civilization. And this is a physical manifestation of that desire to bridge the gap between Europe and Islam and the Muslims. And I feel that we need to work, and Muslim organizations, institutions need to work on building more bridges of this nature, not necessarily following Turkish bridges. You may have other forms of bridges. Of course, the United Nations came up with the initiative of Alliance of Civilizations, which I feel probably will have a better future than the interreligious dialogues which have been promoted over the last few decades. And I feel that the interreligious dialogues, especially between Muslims and Christians, have suffered over the years because of this Islamophobia wave in Europe, in America, and also the statement by the Pope a few years ago, which have angered Muslim scholars around the world. And that, I think, has dampened the spirit of interreligious dialogue between Muslims and Christians, whereas before that, this dialogue was going on well. And then, of course, you have the Saudi initiative to promote interreligious dialogue, but the lack of sensitivity on the part of Christian evangelists and the Vatican in making statements and the Pope in making such statements can undermine the serious efforts to promote understanding between Muslims and Christians. But I think the alliance of civilization, which is now being supported by more than 80 countries, could probably serve a better purpose in bringing the Islamic region and the Muslim world to live in peace and harmony with the Christian and Western civilization. I'm coming to the end. How many more minutes? 1 more minute. Okay, all right. Then I would just, okay, this is, of course, the current threat is how to manage the risks of terrorism and counter-terrorism. I mentioned already that the new accord between the Philippine government and Moro hopefully will lead to real peace in the region, because that has been a big trouble spot in this region. And we also hope that terrorist activities will be controlled. And now ASEAN countries are working together to really detect and root out the hideouts, if you like, of these terrorists in this part of the world. But the way the superpowers react, the way USA and US is going to react is also going to be crucial. And of course now, United States military might is gathered in the Pacific Ocean for good or for worse. Now, of course, the environmental gloom, the ecological crisis facing the whole planet Earth. Of course, this is a big problem, and the failure of the 2 Rio summits, the one 20 years ago and the last one, 2012, does not bode well for the future of the Earth, meaning that the cleavage between the rich countries and the poor countries is going to continue, and the rich is not going to sacrifice for the sake of the poor. Finally, I have this beautiful picture of Dr. Jamila, this courageous Malaysian doctor who risked her life first in Iraq. She got a bullet in her thigh, and then, of course, in Gaza, and now in many parts of the world. IIUM conferred upon her an honorary doctorate about 10 years ago. And it was there that Prof. Said, that she told me that she was my student in UKM when you were also in UKM. And I said, how come? Because you are in medicine, I am in the Faculty of Islamic Studies. Well, I taught a general course on Islamic civilization, and she took that course, and she told me, Prof, I requested you to allow me to write my answers in English because I'm not so good in Malay. I said, okay, you can do it. And she got an A for that, and she told me that. And this is the gallant woman that needs to be emulated all over the Muslim world. And I think men, including myself, should be ashamed to be overtaken by the courage and the sacrifice, the selflessness of this medical doctor called Dr. Jamila, who heads Mercy Malaysia. Now, Mercy Malaysia wants to go all over the world. And Malaysia is just a small country. Jamila is a frail woman, and yet she has that courage, the vision to take on the world. If the Christians can do it, we can also do it, and we can do it together. And Islamic Relief has also been doing its work in Aceh, in many parts of the world. But the tsunami in Japan, we were not able to help much. I think the Western countries, Western NGOs were there to render help. Of course, the Japanese themselves have to solve their problems. And I wish more Muslim countries and Muslim people could be more Japanese in their discipline, in their self-control. Because if this were to happen in other parts of the world, all your supermarkets will be, will be forced open, and people will just go in and steal all the food. But the Japanese just stood in their lines and did not do anything irrational in the face of a major natural catastrophe in the last tsunami. Thank you very much for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, to those of you who have not taken their breakfast, the panel members have given their breakfast to you by the contribution of ideas. Okay, it's time for questions and time for answers. Since we have only a limited time of 40 minutes, what I would like to do is take 4 questions in the first session, and then we'll open to the panel members to answer, and then we'll take in another 4 questions, and then that will be the final question. First question, no comments.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ahmed Yusuf. I teach in ISTAC.
Okay.
The question, or perhaps the short comments to the first speaker with regard to the expansion of the Iranian or the Persian in the world. I felt the issue should be go actually in a pre-Islamic history and look into how the Persian and the Arab were into clash, always based on nationalism and race and not based on religion. And then I fully agree, as what you said, in the 16th century, Persian become an independent Shia state, separated from the Sunni world, and then it goes on, which in fact is a reaction to Ottoman Empire, because again, the competition between the Turks and the Persian, Arabs in the middle. When Islam came, we know, went to Persia during Umar radiallahu anh, and then the issue is still not resolved as the Arab came invade Iran. Actually, it's a race. It's based on nationalism and not really religious components. To the point that when the revolution in 1979 took place, it's also Khomeini was in Iraq for 14 years under the protection of Saddam Hussein, and again, based on nationalism. He wanted to use it against the Shah. And when the treaty in 1975 was signed in Algeria between Saddam and the Shah regime, then one of the conditions is Khomeini must leave Iraq. And when he forced to leave Iraq, he became the worst enemy to Saddam. When he went to France, revolution was materialized in Iran, and then the animosity began, again based on nationalism and not based on religiosity. And this is my interpretation. The expansion of Iran, and when Khomeini came and he claimed that I will export the revolution outside Iran, it is not really the essence of Shiism or Islamism. It is Iranian and Persian nationalism. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This row, please. Yeah, please. And then I will go to the row. Because of nationalism and religionism.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Salam.
I don't know if I'll ask in Arabic because the speakers were Arabs, or English, especially the subject of Iran.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I ask in Arabic or?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can recognize her? Can you introduce yourself?
Pardon?
Where are you from?
I am Ahmed Abdelkader from Libya.
Okay.
Ahmed Faidi.
Okay. Short question.
Okay. السؤال عن الموضوع الإيراني خاصة في هذه الفترة. فيه جهود بذلت من فترة وهي مؤتمرات التقريب أو الأمور التقريبية اللي حدثت من القاهرة منذ 1947 وكانت مستمرة حتى قريبا يعني أو حتى الآن، ولكن أريد نتيجتها في الأوراق تبدو أنها جيدة، ولكن على الأرض عندما تقوت إيران حاليا وأصبحت دولة قوية وتريد أن تلعب دور في المنطقة، وما شاهدناه في العراق وسوريا حالياً يكذب ذلك، أن نتائج الأوراق كانت مزيفة. وإني أرجع السبب، وهذا مجرد عرض فقط، إلى سببين: هو عقيدة الشيعة في التقية